And then I will have the statement of what it is going to be, and the candidates are welcome to say anything they like and go anywhere with the topic. And that way we're not directing them and we're not trying to load the questions too much. So I would definitely like to thank Sheila Lampkin and Gary Meigs for joining us here tonight, running for the State House of Representatives, and I personally am looking forward to what we learn here tonight. So welcome and good luck. Really, let's start with a question that has a lot of people talking, and it has a lot of people, and we're going to start with Mr. Meigs first, and we're going to kind of come out of the gate with a big one and talk about your tax philosophy.
My tax philosophy. Well, my first tax philosophy is that we're taxed too much. That's my opinion. I know that we have a 7% tax rate for the state income tax. It makes it very difficult for us because surrounding states have less tax. I have a ton of friends and a lot of students who graduate and go to Texas strictly because they don't have to pay any state income taxes at all. So that makes it extremely difficult for competitiveness in all areas. Also in taxes, I must say that I do believe that we have to be fair with taxes. For me to say that I would want to do away with government completely would be incorrect, because we do need taxes to support our teachers, our policemen, our firefighters, and all the areas that we need to support. However, I think that I presently do not enjoy the tax system that we have in the United States, to be quite honest with you. It's my opinion that if I make $100,000 a year, I should pay a flat tax of maybe 12 to 15%. If you make $1 million, I think you should pay 12 to 15%, or whatever the flat, fair tax is. I think equality for all in the tax basis is the only way to make it fair. I know that it's not right. I don't want to pay taxes and go over and invest a lot of money in my rent house or something so that I can invest in myself and get a tax break. That sounds real nice and good, but it also cuts down on the revenue that goes in. And if we just had a flat, simple, fair tax for everyone, then it would be flat, fair, simple tax. That's my philosophy.
Same question, Ms. Sheila.
Okay. Well, actually, I don't think anybody likes taxes. I certainly don't. But I know we have to have them, just as Mr. Meigs said. Frankly, I'm not going to disagree with him. I wouldn't have a problem with a flat tax. That's what we don't have that now. But I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's just something we have to work through the system. I'm certainly not going to disagree with it.
Wonderful. Looking to several things when we start to look at, and the reason I started with taxes is a lot of times it becomes a foundation for what can we do in future discussions. And we see a lot of conversations going with infrastructure. Looking specifically to sustainable broadband, high-speed broadband, Ms. Sheila, how do you feel what are some efforts that can be done at the state level for us to expand on and to build on what we currently have?
Well, I definitely think we need to. We are in the process of looking at some broadband for particularly rural areas, because we want to go to virtual teaching and to the e-books. But it's going to take tax money to do it. It's going to take money coming from somewhere. You either have to cut something. I'm not for raising taxes, but I do think we can be more efficient to get some of that done. But it certainly is needed, especially in rural areas. I live 7 miles from Monticello. It costs me $71.95 a month to get internet.
Mr. Meigs, same question.
On the broadband, I've done some investigating in the area to see who has it and who doesn't. And I was shocked to find out when I went over to McGee last week that their public school there has smart rooms. Every single classroom, grades 1 through 12, is a smart room, which is a broadband-based internet system that we're talking about. And the way they do it, they've taken a different approach. They went with a company that bought their whatever you call it from AT&T, and then they ended up putting up a tower with a dish on it, and they beamed it 9 miles through the air without having to get any easements or anything to get every single classroom hooked up with broadband technology, and they also saved themselves 30% on what they were going to have to pay for it. So right now, I'm kind of leaning toward the broadband through the beam using the newer technology that we've just come across in the last few years, as opposed to only the wire in the ground that costs so much money.
Looking specifically, kind of building on what you just said, Mr. Meigs, talking about the schools, the core curriculum mandate, there's a lot more online testing. Ms. Sheila, you brought up the fact that ebooks are rapidly becoming an optimum choice. What are some things as a representative you will be committed to doing to make sure that they have the levels of broadband that are necessary?
Well, I think I'm going to agree with Ms. Lampkin. I'm not willing to raise taxes at this time to do that. If we're going to spend money on projects that we need in these economic circumstances, then we're going to kind of have to reshuffle the deck, make priorities, and decide where we're going to take from to do this, do that. A good example of that, I don't necessarily agree with it. At one point, they decided that public school was going to be funded by 100%, but they left higher education out. So you know as well as I do that over the last 25 years, we've lost 35% of our funding in higher education, and it's been very difficult. So as a legislature, I would try to equalize things a little bit more so that all of us have the same amount of funding in an equal basis. And what that would mean, I'll give you a good example. The University of Arkansas at Fayetteville, the University of Arkansas at Monticello, when they do the funding, they have a funding formula that I don't think is fair. A good example is we got zero funding this year, while Fayetteville got an extra $1 million. Matter of fact, all of the universities in the state got funding, except for the 4 in the South. I think we need to reappropriate funds to where it's equal, so our folks down here in the South get the equal amount of funding that they do up north.
Ms. Sheila, same question, specifically addressing education and some of the broadband needs that are done and what can be done at the state level to help with those.
Okay, thank you. For one thing, at the state level, I'm now on the Communications and Technology Committee, and we are looking at different ways to provide better internet access to the public schools in all of Arkansas, because a lot of our areas do not have it. I did notice in the paper today that there's a line coming from Hampton that's going to be in Monticello within the next year, so it's coming up from out of El Dorado and Camden, and it's coming our way, but we need to address all different types and be more cost effective, because there's just going to be so much money and it has to be split so many different ways. I would like to discuss the issue of the funding. That funding, excuse me just a second. That funding was established by a funding formula that was not initiated by the legislature. It was initiated by the Higher Education Coordinating Board, and that supposedly they agreed to it. That was their decision, how it was to be split. And it's based on a lot of different things, including the size, the enrollment, the needs of the building, the larger volume of classwork, and all those sort of things are factored into that funding formula. The reason UAM and those 4 didn't get it the first time around was because, according to the funding formula, they were already funded at a higher percent of what they agreed was what was necessary to function. And some of these other schools were funded lower. However, a week or two in the second round of funding, UAM did get more. In fact, UAM has gotten almost $500,000 in the next month for different purposes that would help their situation.
Ms. Sheila, topic, economic development.
We surely do need it. Bottom line, how we're going to get it's another thing, because of a lot of different factors. We don't have the highway system in southeast Arkansas. You know, we've waited and waited and waited. We have a lot of organizations that are supposed to be functioning to help us get it, but they haven't done any better, I don't guess, than the legislature has in South Arkansas. It's a lot of talk, but it's also a lot of money, and it all comes down to money and how much you're willing to pay for. Right now, they're working on an 8-mile section of 530 to Little Rock. They've got one side of the road completely torn up, one side of the interstate, and the other side is 2-lane now with a barrier between. That 8 miles, I understand, is going to cost $24 million. And this is a big problem. Where is the money going to come from? We all know we need it. We know that in South Arkansas we need I-69, I-530, the highways. We know we need that. We know we need the intermodal facility. We know we need Yellow Bend Port. We know we need all these things, but at this point, with all of our other needs, there's just not enough money, because, thank God, Arkansas has to have a balanced budget. We could spend all this money like the federal government does. We could do that. But we're not going to in Arkansas for a lot of reasons. One is it's in our Constitution. You have to have a balanced budget. We're not going to spend more than we have.
Mr. Mays?
Okay, economic development. I have a three-part plan that I think needs to be put in place for us to get ourselves out of this. I want to preface that just a little bit to kind of give you an idea of where we are. We've got double-digit unemployment rates in Drew and Ashley County. Since 2001, we've lost 83,260 people out of Congressional District 4, which is basically South Arkansas. How do I know that? Got it from the Secretary of State's office today. 83,000 people. How are we going to fix it? Well, I'm going to start by my first part, called the service industry. There has to be some ways to get people in here. Granted, highways and things, and she's right, it's going to be really hard to get that. The Great River Bridge that's going to connect I-69 over here and get the intermodal system, you can look it up, it's not even slated to begin until 2026. I'll be in my 70s at that point. That's a long time off. So we have to do something now, before all that gets here. So my first thing I'll talk about is the service plan very quickly. We've already started that in Monticello and some of the things down in Crossett as well. We've got a great hospital here. We've got a great university here, which reaches out and does some things in Crossett too. We need more students, which means we need to expand UAM to get more students, because more students means more business for the restaurants. We talked a lot about the big civic center that we'd like to have in this area, which could have athletic events, music events, all those things, bring people in, bring money to the community. That's the service industry in a brief discussion. The second part is we need to turn our area into a free enterprise zone. They've been around a long time. What do you do with a free enterprise zone? We get our area set up as a free enterprise zone, and it gives us state and local tax incentives as well as regulatory relief to bring businesses into our area. It happens all over the world, all over the world. Take some legislative work. It'll take somebody going up there and being able to stand up and lead and put a coalition together in the southern part of the state, whether you're Republican or Democrat, and say, we're going to do this, we're going to block both this, and we're going to do this for our area. And we got enough votes. If we vote together, we can make this happen. Am I out of time? Thank you.
Continuing on that same vein, that kind of opened up the topic. What is your all stance on the state supporting regional economic development organizations? I believe Mr. Meigs, it's your turn.
Could you repeat the question, please?
What is your stance on the state providing support for regional economic development organizations?
I think it's great. I think the state should. I don't think we should raise any more taxes to do it, but the money that we have presently coming in, I think it should be on a need basis. And especially in our area, we've got tremendous needs. I know one thing, if I was in the rest of the state where things seem to be somewhat better, the last thing I would want is for this part of the state to go so far down that all they have to do is take care and support everybody down here, which is the way we're headed with the tax money. So I'm going to say regional support. I do support that, but it needs to go to the places that need it the very most.
The state actually does have 9 or 10 economic development regional district planning districts. Ours is in Pine Bluff, SEAD, Southeast Arkansas Economic Development District. And there are either 9 or 10 more, I've forgotten at the moment, but we do have that in the state of Arkansas, and they do have a tremendous impact, I believe, in this part of the state, especially with our bigger projects like the intermodal, and there's work on a new rail line, which should really help to Yellow Bend and to Louisiana too. So they have several things in the can, so to speak.
One of the, once again, expanding on that, one of the things that has been very useful for economic development has been used several times in Southeast Arkansas and around the state, but it does every year always have a little bit of questioning that goes on. And I guess the question would be, what is your stance on continued funding for the governor's quick action closing for economic development issues?
Start with me?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
you're first this time.
Okay, all right.
I'm trying to do a tally mark system here.
Yes,
If I get out of
okay.
order, just
You'll
say,
have
hey,
to keep
Scott.
me straight. Well, I support it because he does need money in case something comes on. For example, the Hewlett-Packard plant in Conway. Occasionally, we do get a chance at something like that, and he does need funds to have quick action and take care of it and get it in. That goes along with business incentives, and I'm certainly in favor of that. Fact is, I would like to see this area have a war chest of money. I'm not sure exactly where it would come from if you don't raise any taxes, but we do need to get together, I think, as a region and pool our money and have a war chest, which is what a lot of them call it. In case we get an opportunity to have something, we'll have some money to talk with them about.
Well, I agree with that as well. I've already spoken to the fact that I think incentives to get businesses in their areas in desperate need, whether it comes from that particular source or it comes from other incentives that we know we can get if we can get the legislature set up right. I don't see any other way to get things done without incentives from those kind of efforts.
Mr. Meigs, topic, relationship between federal and state governments.
I think our state should always retain its sovereignty. I think the 10th Amendment of the Constitution says that very clearly, that we should remain sovereign and take care of our business. I do not like the federal government mandating anything that we do. I know that they have to help us. Settled law back in 1942 when they went to the Supreme Court, every penny we take from the federal government comes with a string attached to it. If they fund it, you're required to go by their rules. I do not like the relationship between the state and the federal government for the fact that they seem to have over-regulate us, over-control us, and take away the values that we have in these type of areas. I don't think like a person in Washington, D.C. I don't think like a person in San Francisco, California. I think like a person in Southeast Arkansas, and I don't like the federal government mandating any certain way that we have to do things down here.
I would agree with that also. Maybe they do overstep their bonds, but that's not something that the Arkansas legislature can handle. That's something we need to talk to our congressional leaders about and need some legislation there. We really have no say about that, other than the fact that we don't take the money. If you don't take the money, what happens to your schools? What happens to your roads? What happens to your hospitals? The biggest economic development operatives, I suppose, in this part of the state are the hospital and UAM. What if you don't take any federal money? And then, of course, we're almost committed to this point already anyway, but this is something we need to look at on a national level. It's not a problem we can solve overnight.
If elected in November, you go into a session this next spring. Do you already have a short list of bills that you would want to either be the author or a co-sponsor of? And that one starts with Ms. Lampkin.
Yes, I do. I feel like I work full-time at it now because I know the system. When you go in there, like last January when I went in there, I felt like a seventh grader with a bunch of seniors. Nobody gives you a whole lot of directions. You find out how to do these things yourself. And I have worked really hard, and I am ready with some things in January. But I don't feel at liberty to discuss them right now because then your opposition starts mounting and nitpicking things.
Fair.
I do have some things that I would like to be involved in legislating, and I do not mind telling you some of the things that I would enjoy doing. I've already told you one. I would like to see the legislature have a bill that would give us the ability to turn ourselves into a free enterprise zone down here where we'd have the right to send people out to recruit business. I've had more people tell me down here, you can never get any business down here. While I look at Mississippi and Texas sucking business up like crazy, making all kind of money and all kind of jobs. So the first thing I would want to do for my bill, hopefully, is to get our area turned into the free enterprise zone so we can move forward to rebuild our economy down here, get some jobs. And I have some other ideas too, but I'll cover those later.
Could I have a point here?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we did have the Cornerstone and all these other organizations, CAD, MEDC, that are already working to get businesses down here. We just need these incentives to draw. We have organizations that can go anywhere, but we need money, and we need incentives.
Related to that, I would like to broach this conversation, and it's got a little bit of bookends because there's some stuff on the horizon that we've got to address it, but I think it spills over into what you both just said. And that is, and we broached this earlier, is that Arkansas is one of only a handful of states, and I believe the number is 3, who actually stay within the balanced budget. and actually pass the RSA and stay with it. Yet, on the near horizon, we see some obstacles with Medicaid and Medicare in the very near future. What are some action steps that you would suggest in order for us to keep that balanced budget in the future? I don't remember whose turn it was. I think it's Mr. Meigs.
Okay. Well, that's definitely a problem. First of all, one of the things that we're going to have to wait and see is whether Obamacare is found unconstitutional or not. If it goes through, then we know that that's somewhere around the $400 million deficit automatically for Medicaid. So that's a big issue. And being that nobody wants to raise taxes right now, the only way to keep a balanced budget is to take money from other places to put it where you want it. There's no other way to do that. Redistribute the money. If you don't have any more funds coming in and you want to remain with a balanced budget, which I think we should, the only other way to get money is to redistribute it.
I also believe that we need to find some cost-saving measures. We need to look hard, I think, at disability in some of those fields and make sure that we don't have a lot of some fraud. I have a feeling that we do, and I think we need to. I think we'd save money in the long run to figure out a way to catch this or stop this or eliminate this, and then try to tighten our belts in other areas. I think that's what we're going to have to do. For example, right now we're having meetings on this health initiative, and when I say health initiative, everybody thinks I'm talking about Obamacare, but they're not. This is a state effort just within the state of Arkansas to try to cut the cost of medical care to help Medicaid. It's surprising that I've forgotten the percentage now, it slipped my mind, but over 50% of all the people on Medicaid are children. So, but we do have to find ways to cut those costs, and that's what they're working on, tightening the rules and bundling some procedures in some areas to cut costs. That's what we're going to have to do. You know, we can't just cut it out altogether. Who wants to see a child that's sick? A child that's sick can't learn. A child that needs dental work can't learn. We can't cut our children. We can't cut our future. But we can find ways to economize it, and that's what they're working on now. Thank you.
Can I respond one time on one thing I'd like to point out? You know, I feel like I know a lot about Medicaid because my mother's in the nursing home here, and she has been for several years. And I'll just share with everybody, you too, Ms. Nathan, unless you've seen this, it's hard to believe. I've already found one place that we can figure out a way to cut back. I've got pictures on my phone if you want to see it because I snuck in and took them. And in the nursing homes, if you go in every month, the last time I went down, I went in and I found this office full of medicine that they were throwing away. It was unused new medicine, and it was the medicine that we're talking about, Medicare, Medicaid, $5,000 worth in one nursing home, and that happens to nursing homes across the entire United States every single month. We're talking about tons of money that's just thrown out. That's just one area that we could work together to figure out a way to get that loophole cut down.
And this is part of the initiative that we're looking at to try to cut the over-medication and then just the extra, the double. Some people go to more than one doctor and get prescriptions, and then when someone dies, it's just thrown away. Or maybe they change medicine. That's happened in my family, too. And these are some of the problems we're trying to work on. How do we economize and save money to Medicaid by things like that?
Ms. Sheila, topic, immigration.
Immigration now. Where do we go with that? You know, we were all immigrants. I have a postcard that shows Geronimo and says Homeland Security, 1852. Immigration's probably always been a problem. I think it needs to be tighter. I think we need to close our borders and structure it. But it's particularly in areas with low-income jobs like the logging industry and farming, we need some workers. I don't think they should be given extra privileges. I don't think they should automatically get to go to college or get this free or that free. But I would regulate the borders, but not shut them down entirely, because for one thing, I think it's impossible.
Well, when you say immigration, I'm not sure if you mean immigration or illegal immigration, so I'll go both routes. I'll go with immigration first. Every one of us are here through immigration at some point or another, so we have to be for immigration. I am definitely opposed to what's going on with illegal immigration right now. People coming across the border, you can just look at California, their budget for these folks is more than their whole state entire budget. So, you know, the word that gets me on illegal immigration right off the bat is illegal. I believe we're a land of laws. I think we should follow those laws. And if the person is not going to follow those laws, then I don't think they should necessarily, I don't think they should be here. On the other hand, as Ms. Nankin was talking about, the workers that are here legally, we need those workers here. There are jobs right now in southeast Arkansas in the timber industry that I know for a fact that people won't take. We need people to take those jobs, and we need the government not to incentivize them not to take those jobs.
If you're elected, how can your position in your office help to advance the Cornerstone in the wake of the past population losses for our area, and then seeing some of that redistribution of population in other parts of the state? What are you willing to do to try to help the Cornerstone region?
Which one?
I think it's Mr. Meigs.
Okay.
Well, what am I going to do to help get things back to the way they need to be, which is 83,000 people back to the area and industry that we've lost? That's a tough one, but I've already spoken some of my ideas of how to get things back. First of all, I really believe that the economic engine of southeast Arkansas is sitting right over here, the University of Arkansas at Monticello. If the state's going, if we're going to do anything to get this area going, we need to get that college pumped up tremendously. That's how you get people started coming back. How am I going to do that? Well, there's several ways. First way that I think we're going to have to do it is the funding that we talked about earlier. We need to make sure if the funding formula is wrong, and then we need to change the funding formula. Whoever makes the funding formula, we need to change that so the money comes in, we can get more students, we can get housing for the students, and we can grow this thing. Without UAM, I want to tell you, and I'm going to pound on this all the time, even if elected or not, UAM is the economic engine of this part of the country, and if we don't keep it going, then we're going to be in serious trouble. You're talking about a base of economic value of 3,000 students in our area now, all spend money. So that's one of the things I would do is make funding where we can expand the University of Arkansas at Monticello, and I've already spoken about the free enterprise zones to bring industry down into this area. That's another thing that I will push. If I'm elected, I'm going to push that until I can't push anymore, because honestly, I don't think we can bring industry in here at the present way things are. If we could, they would be here.
What am I going to do? Anything legal. I do support the Cornerstone. I think they've had a tough time, and I think part of it's because some of our counties are unwilling to work together. And the hardest thing to do is to make people understand that, according to John Dante, no man is an island. We have to work together. I support the Cornerstone. This was my first term, but I was on the Communications Technology Committee and on the Education Committee and on the Public Health Committee. Next session, I'm to be on the Education Committee, and I'm going to use that driver to the best of my abilities to promote UAM and all of our colleges down here, even our technical school at Crossett, the one at McGee, and the one at Warren. We need those. We need to develop a better workforce. Not everyone should go to college. Not everyone can go to college for a lot of different reasons, although the scholarships are not the hindrance they used to be. But we need to promote all aspects of our community. If I'm all for UAM, don't misunderstand me, but that's the only thing we promote, then those 3,000 students or 4,000 students or 5,000 students are still going to have to leave. The only reason I got into this, well, maybe not the only reason, but the main reason I got into this in the first place is that I taught school 30 years in southeast Arkansas, 20 in Monticello, and 19 in special education. So there are all types of students, and we have to do something for all of them. It's not just one group or one type, and we have to build all aspects of our society. And I think the Cornerstone can do that. I don't think the Cornerstone is about any one thing, but about a combination of things. But you need a workforce to do that. There was a move recently to do away with adult education in Arkansas, and our Southeast Arkansas delegation worked at it and got the credit for stopping that temporarily because we need more money. For example, Crossett laid off 700 people. last year, and a lot of those people could come back to work, but they had to reapply. And when they reapplied, they had to have a GED or a high school education. So they need, those that did not have that in the beginning 30 years ago need to get that. Thank you.
The transition on that actually went pretty smooth from where I was wanting to go with the next question. And that is, you know, a lot of businesses, they talk about some infrastructure issues and how we need to invest in those, and we've touched on that topic. Another one they talk about is workforce development. Like I said, it bridged real smoothly right there. Where are some things that, as an elected official, you will look to target some efforts to develop our workforce to make it more attractive to future industry?
I think we do need to support not only UAM at Monticello, this campus, but also Crossett and McGee and Warren. Workforce means a lot of different things. We need plumbers, we need electricians, we need heavy equipment operators, we need all those things. And like I said, they were going to start chopping away at that last year, and we managed to save them. I think we're going to have to get together as a delegation from Southeast Arkansas or whichever that it fits the most, and work to make sure that we economize somewhere and have funding to keep those things going. We won't have an educated workforce, and I'm not talking about the college education as much as technical skills. It's all in the pattern, you know. We can't all be doctors and lawyers and economists. We have to be plumbers and bulldozer drivers, et cetera, et cetera. And we need to support all aspects of our education, not just the higher education or the four-year colleges. We need the two-year colleges and the technical schools, too, to have that workforce. I know there's a gentleman in town that used to complain because he would get kids out of high school and they couldn't read a ruler. Now they complain because we get kids out of high school and they can't operate a computer, and that's important too. All different aspects of it. We have to work on the same skills, but in a new direction to be successful with a workforce.
Okay, to have workforce development in our area, there's several things that need to happen. Of course, you're right, we need to have there has to be jobs for these things to happen. However, if you go to the high schools, I agree with some of the things Ms. Lampkin said. Everybody's telling all the kids about going to college, and you go to college, and you go to college, and you go to college. But you walk right down here to Mr. Mack's machine shop over here and see all the things he's doing and teaching these guys all these wonderful skills. We forget all about those kids over there that we could be sending in the direction of all those areas that could be work ready when they actually get out of high school, even before they even go to technical school. But we spend so much time requiring kids to take this, that they don't have the time to look at the other options, and we don't promote those other options either. The very blue-collar workforce that my dad and much of my family is still in, they can be ready right out of high school if we would get off of this same thing for every single person on earth. And the other thing I want to mention on workforce development, we've got a major problem with our government in workforce development. I've got a friend that has a timber company down in Hamburg. He's got 40 job openings right now. He can't get anybody to take the job. You know why? Because it's more advantageous for them to stay home, get their check, their Medicaid, and not work. 40 jobs that start at $650 a week right now, and he can't fill it. We've got to tie unemployment at some point to when jobs are open, you need to take those jobs. I mean, one last thing. I have one idea, probably on a federal government level, but I think how we do that is the people that are unemployed and the jobs are available, put them in that job. For my friend that owns a timber company, let them have 3 to 4 months of training while they're unemployment instead of sitting home at the end of 4 months or 3 months of training. They're required to keep that job for 1.5 years or 2 years, just like teachers are required to have a year contract when they go to work.
I want to thank both of you for coming in tonight. I know, and the more I'm around it and the more I watch, the amount of work that our candidates do and the amount of effort that it takes to run for office, to be in office, and what it takes of their personal time is absolutely incredible. And so I'm going to say it to every candidate we got, but thank you for what you're doing and for taking the time tonight to come share with us. Now, when I watch these debates, and I'm an old debate guy, so I watch these and I go, there's a question I always wish they'd ask. And it's not really a question, but it's say anything you want to say. Is there a topic we haven't touched on? Is there something you want to make sure is included in this forum and something that we can make sure that we know about you and about your positions and about your campaign? Sure, who's up this time?
I'll be happy to go first.
Okay.
We covered many things. I would like to, in closing, mention a few things about education. I also have been a teacher for 30-something years. I don't think our public education system is working like it needs to. I don't blame the teachers at all. As a matter of fact, my wife's a teacher, and I don't think it's the teacher's fault at all. However, when 50% of the high school population in Arkansas graduates and they have to have remedial courses before they can take the basic courses in college, it's broke. It's broke. I just really think that we need to reevaluate, in my opinion, and we need to reevaluate how we're doing education, how we're teaching our kids, because if they're passing the test that we're making them take, and then they can't pass their basic remedial classes when they get to college, it's not working. So you don't throw $50 million more at it and say, I hope it gets better. You go back and you find out what's the problem. Personally, what I think is the problem is we're teaching to a test. We're teaching to a test with this much criteria to it, and then when you get ready to go to college or something else, there's this much stuff out there that you need to know. Good example, my daughter is a math teacher. She's fantastic. She could do all this stuff I couldn't do, and then all of a sudden I found out she didn't know her multiplication tables. Skipped all basic fundamentals. We got to go back to basic fundamentals and teach our kids life skills to get them through where they can be productive citizens. The other thing is, I just got to tell you, we've lost 83,000 people, like I talked about earlier, over the last 10 years in our society, and I just believe it's time for a change. You know, I don't believe in talking about parties, because I can tell you if Miss Sheila wins, I'll be her biggest cheerleader and her biggest supporter. However, at this point in time, it's been 150 years with the same folks in charge. So where we are is how we got here, and I want to see us go in a different direction.
I certainly won't disagree on the education problem. It is a problem. Actually, it's out of the kids that not all the kids that graduate go to college, but out of the few that do, 50.3% have to have remediation. And there has to be something done about that. I've been checking. There was a task force on that a few years ago, and they met and they had a nice report. But I don't know that anything has been done about that, and that's one thing I intend to do. Get that report, go back and look at it and see what we can do, because I think the problem, sort of like Mr. Megg says, is we have a failure to communicate, according to Paul Newman and HUD. We have this bunch teaching a benchmark, and this bunch, the colleges requiring an ACT score. But if they don't judge or value or test for the same objectives, then they don't match. And it's not a reflection on our children. It's a reflection somewhere with our failure to relate the two tests. Supposedly, this new Common Core is going to solve some of those problems, because supposedly all the tests will be aimed to the same set of skills. In other words, the kids in Arkansas and the kids in Chicago and the kids in New York will have the same basic skills. So supposedly that's going to solve some of that, and I hope it does, but we'll have to see. But the main thing I want to tell you tonight, well, not the main thing, but one thing I want to close with is I've only served one term. That was a learning experience. I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you, it's not easy. You don't go over there and take over the world. That's the first thing you have to learn. You have to build relationships and partnerships and work together with both parties. We do not want Arkansas to become Washington, D.C. I promise you that. We don't want that. Nobody does. But we have to be able to work together. It's kind of like kindergarten. You learn two things basically in kindergarten: share and play well together. And that's what we need to learn in Washington particularly, and we need to work on that in Arkansas too. We have to do that. But the reason I ran is because I have a heart and a passion and a love for children. God didn't give me any, but I've had probably 2,500 over the years, and I want a better Arkansas and a better future for them, and I will dedicate as much time as I have in my life to that theme, and I ask you to vote for me because I have the heart and the passion and the time to do it. I have nothing else to do. I won't say nothing else to do, but nothing else that drives me and is my passion, like building a better Arkansas for our children. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give these candidates a hand. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to go ahead and get us back going again, and we are glad to bring you the second installment of tonight's discussion and issues forum. A couple of things we want to share with you is that we want to remind you that this is being live streamed. We do ask audiences to be mindful of that, as this is being streamed across the country. And if you are interested, or you know people at home and you can text them or email them real quick, they can actually watch this discussion at www.connect-arkansas.org. And in addition to tonight's live stream, this discussion is also going to be archived. Again, that's www.connect-arkansas.org. It is always incredible when it comes to election season, whether it's a primary or whether it's the formal elections in November. It's amazing what it takes and what it is asked of those who are running. And we have an excellent panel of people here running for the senator's seat, and a group and a collection of men who have been extremely important to Southeast Arkansas, who represent all sections of the area and have a long history of serving our population. Introducing and going from right to left, we have Mr. Greg Reap, Mr. Eddie Cheatham, Mr. Mike Aiken, and Mr. Johnny Boland. Each one of them has a tremendous amount of experience, and I look forward to them sharing that with us. And want to thank them both for the effort they're making to get the word out and to campaign, and also being willing to do what it takes to be our voice up in Little Rock. We're going to do much the same as we did in the first session. We're going to be asking a series of questions. They'll be in two different formats. One will be a directed, more of a sentence form of question, and asking them specifically for stances on specific issues. Others will be, I will say the word topic, and I will then throw the word out there, and each candidate will have a max of 2 minutes in which to answer that, and we will rotate who answers it first, and then rotate the line on each. These questions are not my brainchild, so just sharing that with you. They're actually a collection of questions that have been solicited from people in all 5 of the counties that Southeast Cornerstone Coalition represents. They've submitted them, and these are the issues that we really, as citizens, we're looking forward to being able to ask of these candidates. Before we begin with the questioning, I would like to give each one of them a little bit of time to introduce yourself and to tell us about why you're running and why you should be our next senator. We'll just start right to left if that works for you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Greg Reap. I am a candidate for District 26 State Senate. I live in Warren, Bradley County, a lifelong resident of the Southeast Arkansas area. I graduated from high school there, graduated right here at UAM a number of years ago, and then have been involved in a number of things, public service primarily for most of my career. I worked for the city of Warren for almost 30 years in different capacities. I started out as a member of the mayor's staff and worked a number of years there, and then I was mayor of Warren for some 18 years. And then I decided I'd try the state legislature, felt like it was time to do something different, and I was fortunate enough to be elected there and served 6 years in the state house, served on the public health committee and the agri-economic development committee, among others. Enjoyed that experience greatly, learned a lot. I'm married. My wife is a teacher of some 33 years. She teaches high school in the Warren schools. She has taught in a couple of school districts in Southeast Arkansas over her career, but last number of years there in Warren in the high school. I have one son. He's almost about to turn 24 years old on me, and he went off to college, came back to Southeast Arkansas. Says he wants to live here, says he wants to try to make a living here, and obviously that's an important issue to me. He has an online website business and a few other things he's involved in, so our roots are deep in Southeast Arkansas. This is where I live, where I want to live, and where I want to work for. And I'm just looking forward to tonight and visiting about the different issues.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cheatham.
Thank you, Scott. My name is Eddie Cheatham. I currently serve residents of Crossett. I currently serve in the House of Representatives. I'm in my third term. District 9, which is almost all of Ashley County and the lower part of Drew County. I am a former educator. I spent 19 years at Crossett High School as a vocational teacher. Moved to what is now UAM Crossett Technical Campus as administrator, handle student services, financial aid, anything from floors on up, basically in a small school. My wife is a retired teacher. I retired about 6 years ago, and my wife Ginger is a retired third grade teacher. Spent most of her years in third grade there at Crossett. Our daughter Gina is a first grade teacher. This is the first year she's taught in Crossett, taught first grade in Crossett. And we're excited to have her at home. She's about to get married, so that's a little excitement in the middle of a campaign here. Son Seth is an electrical engineer, graduate of Louisiana Tech, and is living just outside of Denver, Colorado, in a community called Broomfield. That's where our 4 lovely grandchildren live, and we don't spend enough time with them, but we will someday. I currently serve as the House Chair of the Education Committee. I also serve on state agencies, governmental affairs. I serve on the Energy Committee and the Interim Committee of Ag, Ride, and Forestry. Former member of the Crossett City Council, former realtor. Have a little rental property on the side, and we have done pretty well, but we want to share. I think I want to share my expertise with the people of Southeast Arkansas and the fact that I have always tried to serve people, and no matter what I did. And I feel like that I've been able to do this in this position in the House of Representatives, and I want to continue that in the Senate.
Hi, I'm Mike Aiken. I live here in Monticello. Thank you for coming out tonight. I've never run for public office. Always been in private industry, private business. Our family started a business here in 1985 and manufacturing industry, and it was a ground zero startup, and we built it up to a national company with national attention. 200 people, 200 jobs, and it was very rewarding, and it was a lot of fun to have that business for some 25 years. Sold that company 3 years ago, and I think I've got some experience in obviously in business and industry, and I would like to be able to put that experience to work in the state of Arkansas. I think the state of Arkansas is big business, and it needs people with business experience running it. I was fortunate enough along my way in the business in the business world to be appointed to the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, and I served on that for 7 years. Got a lot of exposure to the state economic development and a lot of the communities around the state. And there's a lot of wonderful people in the state with some very interesting and very profitable and successful businesses. Past the Economic Development Commission, I was fortunate in 2003 that Governor Huckabee appointed me to the University of Arkansas Board of Trustees, and that's been a very rewarding experience as well. And I'm still on that. I'm still a trustee for the university in my last year. So I'd like to think that I've been exposed to higher ed around the state and might have some experience and some input that could be that I could use on a statewide level as well there. I have my wife here tonight, Susan. We've been married for 34 years. We have 2 children that went off to college and wanted to come back to Southeast Arkansas, and they are here, fortunate to have jobs and families, and they love living here. We love Southeast Arkansas, and I want to make this as productive and as attractive a place to live for my kids and grandkids that it has been for me. Thank you.
Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, sir. Hello, everybody. I'm Johnny Bolin. I love the feedback that I've been getting in this district, so I'll take that as a compliment that the mic does the same thing. It is good to be here tonight. Johnny Bolin graduated from Crossett High School in 1961. Took an intern job at the paper mill, wanted to come up here and go to college. Got to college and seen a guy throw another guy in the pond out there at Weevil Lake. Scared me to death because my mom had told me don't go near the water until you learn how to swim. So I left, went back home, joined the Georgia Pacific Workforce. Did that for 27 years, both hourly and salaried. 10 years as a salaried guy, 17 years as an hourly paid guy. Served the county 2 years as county judge, a little too progressive. One of the things I learned there that if you beat somebody, you always need to shake hands with them and ask them to come join you. I failed to do that, so that was a valuable lesson in politics. Then I worked for Albany International 10 years, traveled 10 states, 8 of them in the South and Oklahoma. And had a great time, enjoyed that, was nominated Salesman of the Year twice. Then I served this state, my area, Ashley and Southern Drew County, as a state representative from 2000 to 2006. During that time, I was on joint budget for 2 years. I was also chairman of House Transportation, and I also chaired the Southern Legislative Conference, which is 16 states made up of states like Arkansas. Had a great time, enjoyed that. It's good information there. About Johnny Bolin, I've been involved in community activities, civic organization, my local church for many years. As I've already stated, served 3 terms as Arkansas State Representative. I have worked tirelessly for change, for positive change in Southeast Arkansas, a place that we all call home. It has now become a new Senate district that needs a senator who knows the value of having a place called home and a difference maker, a place that needs strong, upstanding leader, and I believe it's Johnny Bolin's turn. Thank you.
Then we're going to try something. I know the feedback's a little bit off-putting. We're going to swap these out for some different mics here.
Very good. It's somewhere I don't like you, Mike. What is it, the mic? I'm teasing you.
We'll get it figured out, or we may just go a cappella here in a second. Some things, questions looking specifically to some of the things that we're looking at. When we start to look at issues, one of the biggest ones we're facing, especially here in Southeast Arkansas, is access to high-speed broadband. What are some things, if elected, that you'll be committed to doing to helping make broadband more accessible? If we could, we'll start with Mr. Cheatham.
Well, as you said, it is very important. In the economy of the day, the jobs of the day, even in education here at UAM or anybody, schools across the southern part of the state, broadband is critical. We don't have it, we don't have high speed. We will not be able to function as a community, as a educational organization, whether here or in Crossett or in McGee at the technical campuses. But we have to emphasize, there's been some work done, there's been work continuing. The group here today is working very hard on this area. And as legislature, I have tried to support that. Of course, money is an issue, no matter what you do today. And we've got to balance, we want less taxes, we want less service. But the broadband is extremely important. We have to have it to attract new industry. It's an economic development tool. So we will continue, if I am elected, we will continue to emphasize that and to try to bring that even farther into the South Arkansas system that we have.
Mr. Aiken.
We definitely need it. It's if you don't have it, you're behind. And Gary Meggs touched on it earlier about what's been done in McGee and with the connectivity there in the schools. A lot of that's been done through the private sector, and I would like visit more with him. In fact, I have some, and he's got some ideas on how we could implement and further expand broadband connectivity to all over southeast Arkansas. So that would be what I would do for starters, would be to say it's already been done in one place, so you don't, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Go find out what they've done and let's try to do it elsewhere.
One of the things that, when I was state rep in a budget, we talked about distance learning. And I found in the state, there was a lot of people who did not want to embrace that. But yet we did a $10 million appropriation, which was funded and has been up and running. But as we move into broadband, to me it is one of the tools that our schools desperately need, our industries, our hospitals desperately need for their connectivity, whether it be Warren Hospital and Crossett Hospital, or whether it be UAM, reaching out to all the schools. Mike Aiken is right on that. AT&T and other people who have been searching out this deal. My question is, why does it take so long? Today is today, and tomorrow will be gone. So I challenge our people who are involved in getting broadband up, so let's get to moving faster. To me, it's worth the effort. It's worth the opportunity for kids. I talked to a lady in Star City today, and she was talking about this very thing. And she said, I may not have the money to go to college, but if I could get on the internet and do my deal, I could get 2 years at least, and then I'd know. Time's wasting. Thank you.
Mr. Reed.
Well, certainly, I would agree that it is a very important issue. It's vital that broadband be extended and made available to all parts of our state. There's obviously the private sector's got to be involved, but also a lot of the regulated utility providers are going to have to be involved. So I think there's some things there we can look at to try to make sure that this does move forward with all due speed, because it is important right now. My concern is the same concern I have about a lot of different issues in our state. I want to make sure when they start providing broadband, they don't start in northwest Arkansas or northeast Arkansas, and they tell us they'll get around us sometime down the road down here in southeast Arkansas. And I just want to make sure we're there with everybody else as this goes forward, and that we certainly advocate policies on the state level to promote it and to push it now.
Continuing on what you just said, and something that came up in the first round, is that there is a sentiment that is out there that wants to take a lot of the funds in the state northward. You know, and they forget about our corner, they forget about the south of the state. If elected, and this one starts with you, Mr. Aiken, if elected, what will be your approach when running into that sentiment or that mindset, and how do you look to work through that to try to help this region prosper?
Well, there was discussion earlier about some funding that was made available to higher ed recently, and these 4 schools in South Arkansas did not get any of it. The funding formula that is currently in place, having served on the UA Board of Trustees, obviously I've sat through some meetings and some discussions on that, and I don't know that I necessarily agree with the formula. You know, what the needs are for UAM is not necessarily what the needs are for UA Fayetteville or UALR. So I would like to, you know, I'd be the last one to say that I'm an expert on how where the funding's supposed to come from and how it's properly allocated. So what I'd like to do is what I've always done in my experiences in life is go to the individuals who have expertise in this area and work with them and find out why, if there's are deficiencies or discrepancies in funding, and if we think UA Monticello is not getting its fair shake, then why? Let's get to the bottom of it, and let's. I don't really believe that there's any deliberate attempt on anybody's behalf to take advantage of or short circuit anybody. I just think it may be the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we've got to become a sounding board and work through and with the people that are in the various agencies where the funding comes from, and properly address the needs of education, especially higher education.
Mr. Bowling?
I think it's an excellent point that Mike makes about the discussion that goes on. That's why we need a senator that will be in those rooms and be those discussions. And when they talk to people like the chairman of the university board, people like Alan Suggs used to be, it's time for us to stand and say, hey, we got a college that's a driving force in Southeast Arkansas, and we want our fair share. And as he said about the squeaking wheel sometimes gets some grease, but it ought not have to be a squeaking wheel. It ought to be because it's about kids. It's about the students at UAM, just like it is Arkansas Tech or SAU or whoever. Education, if we are to get out of this dilemma that we're in, we've got to educate the total child. The saddest day in Arkansas is graduation day. That's the day that kids leave home not to ever come back. We've got to make sure that that kid, soon to be a college grad, has that opportunity. In order to do that, we're going to have to increase enrollment and continue to work on that to keep the students here. My policy is simply, let's go and see what's there, discuss it, build a coalition, and try to increase funding. UAM, even though I didn't go to college here, is very near and dear to my heart. It is the place where we're making college possible for a lot of kids who wouldn't be able to go to other places. UAM, the college for the future, is in Southeast Arkansas.
Mr. Reed?
It's true that the squeaky wheel gets the grease sometimes, but again, I'm concerned that, our share of the grease be top quality, not second-grade material. And if anybody thinks there's not those in positions of authority or in positions in the legislature or other positions in state government from time to time that do not give Southeast Arkansas a due consideration, I think you're mistaken. I've had members of the legislature from other parts of the state, and there are a lot of good people, not throwing everybody in the same boat here, but there are certainly those who will tell you they consider this to be a third world country and really don't care what comes to Southeast Arkansas. And so obviously we've got to overcome that, and so it's just, again, an issue we got to continue to pursue. We've got to make sure state policies are fair to our part of the state. Whatever resources are being put in out there, made available for broadband and those type of activities, that we get looked at and we're not left, way behind. That we get to start at the same time everybody else does, and that would be my concern and my effort would be to see that we were properly taken care of.
Could I make a point?
Quick.
Back a few years ago, when another chancellor was here, the University of Arkansas Board of Trustees had not been on the campus since 1993. We're not going to go back to that. But I'll tell you what, that put a stigma on the University of Arkansas at Monticello. And it's took the board quite a while now to overcome that. I see a lot of positive movements in that direction, and I'm thankful for that. So We have people in policy places that makes those policies, and I'm confident they'll work it through. Thank you.
Mr. Cheatham.
Scott, you know, of course, the legislature didn't really have much to do with the funding formula. I'd have to give Dr. Lester credit, Chancellor Lester. I know he worked diligently on this, and, you know, it had to be agreement, had to be made, and he did what he could. You cannot lay the blame on he or anyone on his staff for what happened. The coordinating board listened to the chancellors of the schools and thought that the formula they had would be the fairest. And again, you know, we didn't really have a say-so, but I know I've talked to him on several occasions about this. No, he wasn't happy with it. But to be fair to the other colleges, he and the other presidents of the colleges south of Pine Bluff, you might as well say, agreed upon the formula and hopes that they would be able to increase their money at a later time. Their costs are lower, unfortunately, but I say unfortunately, it's a good thing to have lower costs, but that's why the formula is like it is, and we certainly can't lay the blame on anyone here at this school's doorstep.
Right.
Mr. Boland, a lot of money that comes, especially from the federal government, comes to the state and then is distributed. Do you think that there should be, because we've talked about funding formulas and we've talked about, you know, specifically with higher ed, but it goes a lot further than that. Do you think that there should be an expansion in terms of, should there be one set of rules for large or small, or should we have a difference of rules that allow, I don't know what the word is, should there be difference for rules for applying money for large and small areas? For example, Little Rock or Springdale versus Lake Village or Eudora.
That is a broad question that you just asked, so I'll do my best to try to give you an answer that might make sense. If you're not careful when you start using different formulas for small areas, rural areas, or others, then you get mixed up. Washington, D.C. today is disconnected. That's what D.C. stands for, is disconnected. And I mean, it's no fun, you know, or it's just a matter of fact. So I would have to study that issue pretty close to say that I would support having different funding formulas for different areas, because once you do that, you open it up for interpretation, and sometimes the interpretation causes confusion. When you got confusion, then you don't get results. So that'd be my answer.
And we'll just keep going down the table. Mr. Reed.
Well, we've seen this happen over the years, just exactly what you talked about. I can remember back in the 70s with a lot of the programs, community development block grant programs, primarily the programs that Department of HUD administered. They dealt with housing, building roads, putting in utilities, all kinds of things. And the grants came directly to the local governments from the federal government. And they even had a differential then. The bigger cities, probably I recall, about 50,000 population was probably about the base. Most of those cities were called, or counties were called entitlement communities. They automatically got money every year from these federal programs if they qualified. The smaller communities, usually under 50,000 roughly, which is most of us in southeast Arkansas, we had to go in there and fight and claw and scratch and apply for some of these grant funds. Well, things changed. Most of the federal grant money, not all of it, but a great deal of it, now comes through the state of Arkansas. That's a major change. That occurred back primarily during the Reagan administration, as I recall, where they started shifting a lot of those programs, and the money simply goes to the state of Arkansas. So the point here is the state of Arkansas can make some of these decisions as to really how that money is distributed. There are some rules, some regulations, income requirements, and so forth that a lot of them have to abide by. But I believe that the state does need to look at the rural areas of the state that have the most serious needs and give them some, if you will, special attention. Now, I realize we can't cut everybody out. Got to be fair to the entire state and all the different counties and cities and school districts and communities. But I do think where the problems are is where a good bit of the money needs to go to assist, and I therefore think it would benefit Southeast Arkansas more.
I think Mr. Reed's right, you know, you really don't want two sets of rules, but in some occasions, you have to make some adjustments, I guess I would say. And I think one thing we followed this last session, and I think former Representative Reed followed, was a lot of talk about moving road and highway money to North Arkansas to follow the cars. But it would really hurt us down here, because at the same time, yes, we may not have as much population. If we're gonna grow economically, we've got to have those roads. So I know we fought it, and I know they did when he was in the House also. Some rules, you know, need to be a standard. You know, education, our funding for our students is our per student funding. Of course, there's state funding on the base, but the federal funding comes on top of that for different criteria. I think that there's no way that can be changed. That needs to be the same, whether a child is in South Arkansas or whether they're in northeast or northwest Arkansas. But I agree with Mr. Reed in the fact that you have to make some adjustments, especially for those areas that are depressed. You've been to Eudora lately, or Lake Village, or any town in South Arkansas. Look at their downtown, the stores are closed up. So I think that you have to have sometimes adjustments to rules for funding for areas that are depressed.
Well, I think the best form of government is the one that's closest to the people. And I don't disagree with what's been said already on this issue. I think we need to disseminate the funds down to the communities and the local levels. And the people at the local levels, if they're progressive, if they're proactive, they'll know the needs. Nobody knows the needs of the community better than the people that live there. And, you know, we as representatives of the community need to make sure that we're getting our fair share of the funds distributed equally, or distributed to where the money can be best used to benefit the needs of the district.
Thank you all. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and go to topic questions. We'll start with Mr. Reap. Tax philosophy.
Don't tax any more than we absolutely have to. Obviously, it does take some revenue to do things. We can't cut it all out. Try to be fair with our tax policy. Sometimes that's a moving target, but I would say try to keep our need for revenue as low as we can. Try to be smart with the money that we do have, but we are going to have revenue from time to time to do various things. You don't build highways without money. You don't provide public health in the form of public hospitals and so forth without funds. I would hope that we would give as much flexibility to our local governments, meaning cities, counties, and school districts, to try to let them do the things that they need to do. The state provides some turn-back money to our cities and our counties, as well as, of course, a lot of money into our educational system. So therefore, obviously, the state's going to be involved in that. But I would say try to be frugal with our money and be smart how we spend it.
Scott, I'm certainly not a person that wants to tax people any more than we are now. Matter of fact, this last session, we had the biggest tax cuts in the state of Arkansas in the 2011 session. Reduced the manufacturing tax on utilities. Used cars, we felt like people that were out there, maybe they could not afford new cars, we raised that $2,500 to a $4,000 credit on the used car with tax on the first $4,000. But at the same time, just like today, I had a lady fussing about not making enough money, she's a state employee, and she was going to increase taxes, but you got to balance with what you have and what you need. I think we need to continue to look at our lucky to have a balanced budget, but certainly we need to continue looking at what we have to make sure we're using that money properly in the right places, to make sure it's where it needs to be, that we're not wasting it. And there's probably waste in government, in any government. So we need to continue, whoever's elected this position needs to continue looking at with a real close scrutiny to make sure that we're getting the most of our money, because we certainly don't want to raise taxes on our people. But at the same time, you want services, you can't have services without taxes, so you must pay some taxes. But again, I'm not a tax person, and I'll continue to look at what we have before I certainly want to propose we raise taxes.
I think we've got, I don't think we need any new taxes. We're taxed enough. I think there's plenty of money to go around. I think we have to, kind of an elementary approach, elementary term, but I think we've got to reshuffle the deck. I think there's some abuse. I think there's some fraud. I think there are areas that, I can tell you an example. Just in my experience with the University of Arkansas at the hospital in Little Rock, the amount of Medicare and Medicaid fraud there is unbelievable. And on the national level, I saw a segment on 60 Minutes not too long ago, and they talked about the amount of Medicare and Medicaid fraud nationally. It's in the hundreds of billions of dollars. And so I think there's enough on state level. I think there's plenty of money to go around. We've got to identify where the waste is, where the fraud and abuse are, and somebody's got to be willing to stand up and say, enough's enough. We're going to draw the line. We're going to enact or implement some programs, whatever you want to call it, watchdogs, etc., to try to figure out where the waste is. It's no different than in your business. I mean, when times are tough, you don't raise prices. That's the best way that I know to go broke. But you do figure out where the fat is, and you cut it out, and you become lean and mean, and you run an efficient operation. And I think that, personally, I think that can be done at the state level.
As my brochure says, I'm a moderate thinker on a lot of things, and my position is moderate on a lot of things. I watched the debate this past physical session. I usually don't give compliments to my opposition, but when I seen that only 21 million could be come up with that needed to be cut, that spoke pretty well for the way the state's being run. With that, the next governor that we elect will probably have the same philosophy. I was there when Governor Huckabee, unfortunately, had to really bite the bullet and do some things. But we lived through that. We cobbled some things together and made it work. One of my major concerns, though, is a little different than what Mike has stated, is that infrastructure. I've been to 110 towns in this state, and I've listened to people talk. Everybody wants good highways, but nobody really wants to pay for them. But in order to have a good highway system in southeast Arkansas, which is necessary, the Blue Ribbon Committee cobbled together to have a cent sales tax deal. Jonathan Barnett, a good friend of mine from northwest Arkansas, was the sponsor of the bill. He had 70-something sponsors on it, co-sponsors, and it passed. You, the people, are going to get a chance in November election to make a decision whether you're going to vote for the half-cent sales tax to start the 4-lane grid deal. I'm on record that I will vote for that. I'm on record that I recommended that it be referred to the people where they could have a say, where they could say whether they wanted the 4-lane connector or not. So that's why I'm a moderate in tax deal, is because I think there is sometimes a necessary deal that we have to do. In order to have good highways in southeast Arkansas, we're gonna have to step up the plate.
Starting with Mr. Cheatham. Topic, economic development.
If you've heard any, you've been to any forums in the past 3 months where we spoke or other people spoke, other participants in races, economic development is always the first thing that comes up. You've heard Governor Beebe talk. He talked about economic development. He tied education to that.
Right.
But it's very important. Somebody mentioned Cornerstone Coalition. It's an organization that's been here a while. They've worked hard at this. And we've got people like Mike Smith in Crossett who works on economic development. We've got someone here in Monticello. We've got people in other towns that do that. Somehow we will have to, in my opinion, we're going to have to work together. Of course, we all want our own little piece, our own little part of the kingdom. But we must work together in Southeast Arkansas to bring economic development. It's going to cost money. I know the governor's quick load fund has been mentioned. Very important piece. I certainly wouldn't have any problem if we could find the money to add additional money to that. Because there's a lot of communities out there that have ideas. But unfortunately, it takes the money to attract industry. We've lost some, maybe not in our part of the state, but we've lost some other parts of the state because we could not come up with enough money. They would go to another state because they could get better deals. Maybe it shouldn't work that way, but that's part of life. But economic development is very important. If we move this part of the state forward, we're going to have to attract jobs. They can be blue-collar jobs. They can be high-tech jobs. We have got to train our people, though, for these jobs. Again, we see the tie to education. 4-year degree is good. It's not always necessary for economic development. Luckily, our technical branch in Crossett and one in McGee are set up to where they can actually customize training. We're working with an organization in Crossett, a business in Crossett, to open up next month that we will do training for them. And I think my time's up.
Economic development. Number one, we got to make sure we take care of what we already got existing. We got to go see them. We got to visit with them. We got to hold their hand. We got to find out what their problems are or issues. We got to find out if they're willing to grow. Is their industry conducive to that? Is their industry one that's severely depressed? But number one, we got to take care of what we got. We sure don't want to lose anything. Number two, if we think somebody's going to waltz into southeast Arkansas and say, I'd like to build a plant here and employ 500 people, what are you going to do for me today? I don't know. We might ought to reconsider where you went to school or something. I don't know, but that's probably not going to happen. Is what I'm saying. My idea on some of this is, and I've seen it done in other communities, and that is you identify what your strengths are or what your industry would be well suited for industry-wise, and then you go look at where some candidates are that are in that business that might be looking to grow, and then you put your best suit on and you get you a super salesman, and you go see them, and you ask them. You know, you don't get to order if you don't ask for it. And you go ask them, would you consider coming to my community and opening your next plant or opening your next business? And get them to be honest with you. And get them to tell you why, if they're not willing to look at your community, just get them to say, be honest if you don't mind being honest. I mean, we don't have any, we're not mad at each other. Would you please mind telling me why you wouldn't consider my community? And that's food for thought. You go home, you figure out why you missed that one, and then you know what to do better next time. I agree that we don't have a checkbook, but there's a lot of industries that are homegrown, started, and I'm not just saying that we're a prime example, but we're an example of what can happen if somebody's got passion. I'm through, and if they'll work hard enough and do something, they can build it. Thank you.
Quick Action Closing Fund. 2003, Jake Fowles and I filed a bill to give Georgia Pacific a $10 million tax break to build a tissue machine in Crossett, Arkansas, with an impact of $2 billion on the state economy. The next day, after the governor signed the bill into law, the state of Louisiana flew to Atlanta, Georgia, took our bill, and doubled it. Guess who got the paper machine? It wasn't Crossett, Arkansas. It was Port Hudson, Louisiana. The Quick Action Closing Fund is a very important fund, and I support and will lobby for and try to work to increase the funding to that rate. Why? Because of the Georgia Pacific situation. $2 billion impact. Right now they're producing tissue, towel, and everything at 2,000 tons a day that goes to Walmart, which is put in their stores at 60% of capacity of what we're doing there. Why is that important? Why do they do that? It's because it provides jobs and a good place to do it, a good place to call home. If you look at Crossett, you see an organization down there that has to do it on narrow two-lane roads. Their own competition within their company in Muskogee, Oklahoma, Meridian, Mississippi, and Palatka, Florida, is 5 to 10 minutes from a 4-lane highway. When they put that mix in there as far as the cost of transportation, we go from number 1 in low-cost production to number 4. I understand what my opponents are saying. I disagree with them. It's time to add the money to Quick Action Closing Fund, give Arkansas Economic Development another opportunity and more money to attract these businesses and keep the businesses we have, because we're talking about $25 to $30 an hour. Thank you.
Well, economic development is probably the key issue in southeast Arkansas, because I found that when people have jobs and are working, a lot of the other problems get solved. So obviously we've got to work on that in a lot of different ways. I don't think there's a magic bullet to it. I'm not sure about the comment about being opposed to these things. I'm certainly supportive of trying to improve our highways. The infrastructure is vital, not highways certainly, but all kinds of other infrastructure, water, sewer, all types of different aspects of infrastructure is absolutely needed if you're going to bring especially manufacturing or any kind of major service industry in. Now, every community that I know in southeast Arkansas County and most of the cities, in some shape, form, or fashion, is putting some money into, quote, economic development. And I think that's where most of the work's going to have to be done. I think it's going to have to be done on the local level. It's going to have to be done in a cooperative manner. And I think we're seeing more cooperation than we've ever seen before in southeast Arkansas, but we've got to do an even better job of all of our local governments cooperating. We've got to do a better job of selling ourselves. We're going to have to go out and do that. I agree with that. But I will again say this. One of the jobs of state government through the Arkansas Economic Development Commission is to recruit, certainly to help our existing industry, agree with that 100%, but it's also to try to recruit other businesses and industry to the state. And I still think that oftentimes we are not very high on the list. We're probably harder to sell because of our lack of infrastructure, because of our different issues that we face in southeast Arkansas. But I think it's about time for the state to do as much as they can to bring some of these companies to us and let us try to sell ourselves instead of carrying them where it's easy to sell.
I tell you guys, I really appreciate this, and I'll be honest with you, the conversation we're having, I think is one that we could continue for some time. But we're narrowing in on the time, and I do want to certainly give you all a chance to have a little bit of a summation. Anything else you want to add? If you're elected, a bill you'll author, just anything you want to add. And definitely thank you all for being here tonight. And we'll start with Mr. Aiken. I believe that's where we're at in the rotation, and then we'll just run the same pattern we've been using.
Kind of the foundation or the reason or why I'm running is I've got got 3 small grandchildren, and I've had some really great opportunities in my business career and in my life thus far, and most of those have been in Southeast Arkansas. And I'm concerned that if we don't make some changes, that they may not have the opportunities that I've had. I'm fortunate enough that my children do live in the same community in Monticello where it's just like we do. And as their kids grow up, you know, I think if we don't do some stuff on the economic development side, on the infrastructure side, on the education part of it, that those opportunities are not going to be here for them when they get older. I've had a lot of people come up to me, people that I would have that surprised me that they did when they said, you know, we're in a mess and we don't think we're going to get out of it. And they're talking primarily on the national scene, but the national scene certainly has a tremendous impact on us. We hear a lot of talk these days about, you know, that if so-and-so's elected, or if this is, and I'm talking primarily on the presidential race, that we're going to give control back to the states. And I couldn't agree with that more. I said it earlier, I think the best form of government is the one that's closest to the people. And we've got to definitely make some changes. There are some things that if we did that, got the government close to the people, I think people like the ones seated at this table, the other ones that you'll hear tonight, will have the ability to have an impact, make some changes, and create some opportunities like I've been able to enjoy. So that's why I'm running. I would appreciate your support, and I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate Scott and the Cornerstone Coalition hosting this event tonight.
I want to first say thank you to the Cornerstone. I see Kenny Gober has joined us, and it's good to see him. There's a project over on his side over there that's called Yellow Bend Port that we all ought to be involved in. The ships coming in from the Panama Canal up and docking in the south is going to need an avenue. That's one reason I'm running, is because I want to help promote Yellow Bend Port, because I think that's part of the transportation that we need. Secondly, education, education, education. The lack of a well-trained workforce. I want to be part of the driving force to get the Department of Ed, higher ed, workforce people together, and let's find out what we can truly do to improve on what we're already doing at Crossett, Warren, and McGee. I want to see UAM be at 5,000 students in 5 years. That may be a dream. If it is, fine. But that's where it's at. Meggs is right when he said University of Arkansas and Monticello is the engine. Ladies and gentlemen, this state is too great not to care about it. But we can do better. We got to do better. And what it's going to take is rolling our sleeves up and going to work just like we used to do years ago, when people would go to work and bail this country out. The generations of the 80s and 90s, right now, year old, the greatest generations that ever lived in this earth. They knew how to survive. They knew how to make a difference. We just need to revive our spirit, and let's go to work. Thank you all again, and God bless you. God bless the United States, and God bless America, and God bless this state of Arkansas and District 26.
Scott, thank you. Cornerstone, everybody being here, I likewise appreciate it very much. You know, democracy is a great thing. Sometimes we take it for granted, I think, in this country, and we certainly don't need to do that. It's important that we're able to get out and talk and visit. And, you know, there's no policeman standing in the door listening to what we got to say or trying to find out what we're up to. So I appreciate that very much. I'm going to tell you what I tell everybody. talk to, I want to be the state senator. I think I know how to do the job. I will work hard at it, but I don't have all the answers. I'm not going to tell you that I've got all the answers. I'm not going to tell you I'm perfect, that, I hadn't, made some decisions in my service in the past that might need to be done different. I try to learn from that, and I try to listen to what people say and try to look at each individual issue that comes before the legislature. And what the legislature is really about in this state is setting a budget, and that means setting priorities and making sure that each part of our state, again, Southeast Arkansas in my case, gets their proper share of whatever resources are out there. There's no magical solution to a lot of this. I've seen people serve in the Arkansas General Assembly that when some issue got hot and got a little bit tough and they started getting a bunch of phone calls, suddenly they disappear. They don't even vote. If you ever go back and look at the records, you'll find out sometimes a lot of the members don't vote. I'm not talking about any specific person, but I've just seen that happen over the years. I vote on every issue. You may agree with me all the time, you may not agree with me all the time, but I'm going to vote and try to explain why I voted that way. And if I make a mistake, I'll go back and try to correct it if I get a chance to. I learned a long time ago that everybody doesn't agree, but you try to work these issues out, and my focus will be Southeast Arkansas, our health care, and our economic development, and make this even a better place to live, because I like it here. Thank you.
Scott, I'd also like to thank you and Cornerstone. You're an excellent moderator.
Thank you.
And I think, I'd like to thank the people here. It's a shame this auditorium is not full because
Amen.
it's an important decision that people of this part of the state are going to have to make. I think you asked about bills that we intended to file or maybe things we've done in the past. But, I didn't go up there to file bills. I went up there 5 years, a little almost 6 years ago, pretty soon, I guess. But what I did, I went up there and listened to people of this part of the state. When they have issues, that's what I wanted to do. The only bill that I've got in the hopper right now is something that'll help Georgia Pacific. And if I don't get elected, I'll turn it over to whoever is being elected. It's a pretty simple bill, but it'll save them quite a bit of money in their transportation costs. Of course, education has been a large part of what I've done, but it's not all of what I've done. Chaired the Education Committee this last session took a lot of time, and I did not pursue a lot of separate legislation. One thing I did this past session, though, I filed an ethics reform bill. I was concerned about trying to put a moratorium on the lobbies when a legislature leaves 2 years before they come back and become a lobbyist. Of course, couldn't get that out, but what we did make an agreement with the other legislators that the bill finally came out with a 1-year moratorium. Of course, those going out this year could still be a lobbyist. It'll start 2 years from there. Also, when that bill rolled up was, I think we as legislators need to be concerned about what we do in the public eye. And that bill also was a piece that in out-of-state travel, we are reimbursed just like any other state employee. The cheapest way. It's cheaper to fly, you fly. It's cheaper to drive, you drive. I think we need to be aware of what our people back here think about us. I think it's very important that we set a good example. The other thing that I've done, I guess the proudest of, was the constitutional amendment in my second term. We're concerned about cities, counties, local governments, bond issues, could not sell bonds because of our archaic usury laws. And I amended that, and it got out on the ballot, and the people passed it, and it really helped our cities, counties, and our local small businesses. It gave them another edge in their business. And I also voted for Senate District 26. I would appreciate your vote, and I will be available.
On behalf of the Southeast Arkansas Coalition, myself, and also all the citizens of Southeast Arkansas, thank you all for coming tonight. I want to thank you all once again for coming out here tonight, and as we take our debate to the federal level, there's a couple of things that we have to make sure that we recognize at all times, and that is that we've got the freedom of speech and we have to use it. And that freedom of speech doesn't mean that we just simply talk, although that's a lot of times how it's defined. but it means that we have the right to express ourselves. But most importantly, one of the ways that we can express ourselves is by voting. And we have that opportunity, and we have that responsibility, and we have that right. But the fact of the matter is, in our country, there's a lot of people that don't vote. There's a lot of people who do not take the time to either get registered, but even more, that are registered that don't go. And so I encourage every one of us here, every one of us that is receiving the live feed that is going across, and anybody who sees this archive message, take the time to vote. It makes the difference. We have to do it. And then go find a friend and get them to do it too. Because that's the way we're going to make things better. That's the way our voice gets heard. We want to thank the gentlemen who are gathered here today. It's important for us to note that in every race that we've had tonight, that we have brought a candidate in, that all members of the race have been invited to participate. And I think that's important from the Cornerstone Coalition standpoint, is that we wanted to create a fair and equitable process that we could bring people in. Space and geographic area sometimes makes that difficult. And we invited several people, specifically Congressman Crawford and Clark Hall, to participate tonight. And originally we're going to actually view them in via Skype. But technical issues have made that not possible this evening, and they have sent us, or we have received a statement and asked to be read on behalf of Congressman Crawford, who's in D.C. tonight, but also we have requested one from Clark Hall, and if we receive it within this hour, we will share it with you as well. Before we go to the gentlemen who are here, I want to read the statement from Congressman Crawford, and then we'll go from there. Dear friends, let me begin by thanking the Southeast Arkansas Cornerstone Coalition for sponsoring the candidate forum tonight. I apologize for not being able to join you in person, and I want to thank Scott Kutencooler for reading this letter on my behalf. It is an honor to share news from Washington with you and some ideas for moving Arkansas forward. I would be remiss if I did not recognize one of the greatest advocates for Southeast Arkansas, Sam Angel. Sam has served on the Mississippi River Commission since 1979 and is currently serving his fourth successive appointment. Many times I have said that the greatest divide in Washington is not between Republicans and Democrats. The greatest divide is between rural and urban interest. Southeast Arkansas faces many unique challenges, but we also have tremendous opportunity. One example of opportunity is Yellow Bend Port. The port's location on the Mississippi River makes it one of the most convenient locations on the inland land ripe for industrial development. Yellow Port plays a key role in the continued economic development of Southeast Arkansas and the entire Delta region. I look forward to working with the Port Authority and local leaders to support the Yellow Bend Port and to grow the local economy. A few weeks ago, I was named to a conference committee of House and Senate members who will be charged with resolving the differences between the House and the Senate versions of the highway bills. It is a rare for freshman members to be appointed to the conference committee, and I will use my seat on the committee to be a voice for Arkansas. Our 1st Congressional District has more Mississippi River frontage than any other in the country, and I will work to ensure that the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund is actually used for harbor maintenance and dredging along the river at the Yellow Bend Port and ports like it. Currently, I am working on legislation that would make it easier for small businesses to compete for historically underutilized business zones or hub zones. The Delta is a prime region for obtaining hub zone contracts, and my plan is to make these contracts more accessible and would help small business in the Delta grow and thrive. Many members of the Northwest Arkansas Intermodal Authority have told me about the depth of knowledge and tenacity of Southeast Arkansas's Intermodal Authority. Although the Regional Intermodal Office is not located in our 1st District, its success means success for all of Southeast Arkansas. Great opportunity is being created with the Intermodal Park close to Wilmer, and moving forward, I hope to work closely with the Southeast Arkansas Intermodal Authority to make our region better. For too long, Southeast Arkansas has been underserved by the status quo. In Washington, I fight every day for the interest of my district and to educate my colleagues about life in our region. By building a bipartisan coalition, we can improve the education, keep rural post offices open, make health care more affordable and accessible, and ensure the viability of Mid-South agriculture. Thank you again for the chance to address the Southeast Arkansas region at their Economic Development Candidate Forum. It is an incredible honor to represent Arkansas's 1st Congressional District in the halls of Congress. Moving forward, I will continue to fight to put the people before politics. Congressman Rick Crawford. Ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to have the people who are here today. And I want to start out by having you introduce yourselves to us, and wherever you want to go to say hello and to introduce us to what it means to be running for the office you are.
Okay. My name is Gary Latonich. I am an Arkansas State University economist. I have been in Arkansas 31 years. My wife and I chose to come here in 1981 to raise our 5 children. They're now all grown and gone, and we're in the race for 2 reasons. Basically, bad economics on the part of Congress, and in a sense to give back to Arkansas. You know, our state motto may now be the natural state, but at one time it was land of opportunity. And for me, it's been truly an opportunity to be here. And so I would like to give back and use better economics for a better tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. I'm State Senator Gene Jeffers from Luann, Arkansas, south of Washita County, south of Canton, between there and Smackover. It's good to be back in southeast Arkansas. I grew up at Crossett, south of here, and went to school here at UAM. Graduated in 1971. As a matter of fact, I live just right close to here in some of the dorms here out here. My wife and I did at that time. She worked at the Burlington plant here as a operator while I was going to school, and that was about 43 years ago when we married. And we were just right out of marriage at that time, got out of college, and I moved to the Camden area, and I've been a school teacher there. And she has as well for the last several years taught for 28 at Camden Fairview. Was a high school choir director. Taught several thousands of kids, and drove a yellow school bus. You know, I don't know if there's any school bus drivers in Congress. There needs to be. Because if you can handle a school bus full of kids, you can handle Congress. You know? You really can. This thing's about some common sense. You know, Congress acts like a bunch of old sore-headed cats. We got to put somebody up there that talk to each other, look at each other. We got to make a difference. We're in bad shape, and we need to make a difference. It's good to be here with the coalition. Scott, it's good to be here with you. I'm not going to try to pronounce that last name. It's a great name. I haven't done it before, but I had it when I was looking at your name tag when I did it, brother. And thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I'm Q. Byram Hurst, and I'm running for Congress in District 4. To let you know basically who I am a lifelong resident of Garland County. In fact, I'm a 7th generation in Garland County. I'm married. I've been married for 32 years. I have 5 children, and I have 8 grandchildren. And I was educated in the public schools in Garland County. All of my children were. I attended the University of Arkansas and got my undergraduate degree in business and graduated from the University of Arkansas Law School. All of my children have been educated in Garland County, and all of them have college education in the state of Arkansas. For the last 38 years, I've enjoyed the practice of law, and I've had a law practice that's allowed me to see people from all walks of life and to understand the difficulties that they have, understand their problems, and try to help them with solutions. In addition to that, my wife and I are the owners of a small business. It's a caregiver referral business where we refer caregivers to the elderly. And that's given me even a greater insight into our elderly population and what they need, the programs that they depend upon to live, Social Security and Medicare, and how important it is to protect those programs. I'm running for Congress because I think I can use my education, my experience, and the things that I have developed in my life as a congressman to benefit District 4. Thank you.
As we've done with previous sessions, there'll be 2 kinds of questions. There will be ones that are directed, and all of those questions have come from members of the Southeast Arkansas region, representing several of the 5 counties that make up this part of the area. In addition, we will also do topic questions, where I will say topic, and I will say a word, and that from there will be your choice where to go with it from there. So if we could just start the rotation, we'll start on this end and work our way down, and then we'll rotate each time.
Scott, could we first of all distinguish that we 3 are not opponents here, that we have 2 different distinctive areas, congressional districts?
Share that.
I think Gary here is from is running for the
First
congressional district, and Hugh and I are running for the 4th district. So we're not opponents up here, all of us together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. What do you see as things that the Cornerstone can do to help our area to kind of start our economic engine, to get in the game when it comes to both job creation and retention?
To answer that, I think what Cornerstone needs to do is to attract more funding to Southeast Arkansas. I understand that the Delta Regional Authority had a budget of $30 million. It's been pared down to 11. At $30 million, that's the equivalent of a person making $50,000 a year, donating 50 cents to a cause, charity. That's not enough money to seriously do anything. If we're going to develop Southeast Arkansas here, we need to have a massive inflow of funding to generate growth poles, to generate transportation, to expand education. So my answer to that would be that the best thing you could do would be to either get state funding or, more preferably, federal funding on a large scale to do some massive infrastructure projects and focused growth in the state.
Totally agree. Great answer for all of us. We cannot overlook 2 things, though, and it's almost trite that we say it so much, but it is absolutely the truth. The coalition must push education. In order to bring a workforce, or to bring jobs here, we've got to have an educated workforce. There's just no question about it. If not, we're going to be doing those meager jobs that will not support the kind of family payrolls that need to exist here in our Southeast Arkansas, or across all of Arkansas. And right along with that education, they must also push transportation. I was listening to the other gentleman here earlier that were running, and those things were prevalent in just about everyone's speech, but it's so important that we as a community or as an organization understand education, the importance, the role, and also transportation means.
Well, I think we're already off to a great start. When we talk about the Cornerstone Coalition, that type of creative thinking is what Southeast Arkansas needs to really promote itself and promote the economy. There are a lot of great things that are going on in Southeast Arkansas, and it's blessed with all types of natural resources. So we have to capitalize off of that. And when we join together, when several counties can come together and join in a coalition, that's the most important thing that you can do, because together you have a great deal more strength than you do individually. Now, I agree with the other men at the table. There are some things we have to be focused on, and of course attracting funding is very important. But we've got to be focused on what is going to create jobs. Jobs are something that are not partisan at all. A person gets a job and an employer wants a worker who can do that job, and a worker wants a job in which they'll get paid a fair wage. And they don't care what the party politics of it is. And so we've got to concentrate on the creation of those jobs. And when we join together, when we promote the resources, then we can get down to the promotion of what really creates the jobs in the field of education, in the endeavor of infrastructure, and then you're going to have a situation where you've got jobs. Not only people are attracted to those jobs, but they're educated to perform that job. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffers, we'll start with you on this question. Looking at the explosion of technology and how it's really shaping and sculpting the world we live in, but yet we see pockets of our country where the sustainable, high-end, high-speed broadband internet is not possible. What would be some things, if elected, that you feel you could do to help bridge that gap that we are currently experiencing?
Great question, Scott. I live in rural South Arkansas. I live at Luann. A lot of people think that they live in L.A., but I actually live in L.A. You know, a lot of think that it's lower Arkansas, but it's actually Luann. But you know what? I live 6 miles from there. You know what my internet looks like when I get it? It moves rather slow. I understand the need for technology out here. My youngest son, Justin, graduated from college right here at UAM 2 or 3 years ago with an information technology degree. And he is just on top of the world in a new job, and is going to be in New York on election day, actually. But he's going to vote early, Q. I hate to tell you that, but he is. And but he tells Daddy, and which I was chairman of the Information Technology Committee here in the Senate here a few years ago. He said, Daddy, don't tell him you can't turn your computer on. I say, son, just as long as I got you, that's all that matters. You know, there is a new world out here. There is a new world. And we have got to prepare for it. We've got to be amongst it. We've got to be part of it. And yes, rural Arkansas, southeast Arkansas, I'm sure south central and northwest Arkansas has those concerns, and we have got to make that infrastructure much, much broader. We have got to have broadband access, or we become further and further behind. Thank you.
Well, I think the expansion of broadband use is just absolutely critical. You know, when we drive through southern Arkansas and southeast Arkansas and these beautiful small towns, and you very clearly see that young people are often moving away and not coming back and settling. And, you know, the use of broadband can be a great equalizer, because sometimes young people and people that are starting their families, they'll want to move to an area where what they describe is there are more things to do, there's more activities, there's more ability for children to have educational activities. But the use of broadband can be a great equalizer to that. You know, they could enjoy the great natural resources we have, the beauty of southeast Arkansas, and with broadband use, they're able to engage in a lot of cultural activities that you might have to drive miles and miles apart, because we all know that there are websites that have forms of art. There's websites that offer all types of cultural enrichment. And so I think it's the great equalizer. It not only allows us the opportunity for educational activities and the promotion of educational matters, but it also allows us the opportunity to see firsthand things that are occurring in other parts of the world that we can't necessarily travel to. So I think the broadband use is extremely important. It's probably more important for rural America and rural Arkansas than it is anywhere else.
The question would be, why don't we have enough broadband access in southeast Arkansas? Is this a technical problem? So we don't have the infrastructure to do it? Is it a cost problem? It's simply, it's there, but unaffordable by low-income residents of southeast Arkansas. Either way, it's a fixable problem. I mean, in the 30s, we did rural electrification. We went and made sure that all rural areas in the United States had electricity. This can be done, okay? It simply requires us to expend the money to either give investment tax credits if it's a capital problem, or if it's a matter of access, then there's no reason why there can't be subsidy programs. I mean, we have food stamp programs for people who can't afford to buy food. We have Section 8 housing for people who can't afford housing. If broadband is really as critical as we say it is, then there should be a program available for people who are low income to be able to access it if the problem isn't technical but simply a form of an income problem.
Extending on kind of what you just said, you asked the question why, and some research has been done is that there's three reasons. There's access, there's an understanding of what it means, and then there's also the hardware gap because it has the cost. If elected, would you support programs similar to what Connect Arkansas does and is currently doing right now with a program called Computers for Kids, in which they educate kids and families, and then part of it is they subsidize the cost. It's a refurbished computer, but it gets computers in homes. Would programs like that be something you would be in favor of? We can start with anywhere on the panel.
Yeah, I would, because as a college professor, what I notice is that when you see kids come to college, there are some who are so well versed in computer technology, they don't really need our micro applications class. I mean, they're well beyond it. They're off and running. There are other kids who come to college who, for them, a computer is, believe it or not, something they've not seen a whole lot of, okay? And there's a big gap between them. And the catch-ups almost never occur. And so what we need is for all high school students to come with basic computer technology. If that requires a program where we subsidize there's no reason why every high school student shouldn't have access to computer technology, refurbished computers, so that when they go to college, this is like using a cell phone to them, okay, that common. It's not in Arkansas, but it should be. So programs like that are absolutely essential. Otherwise, we're going to have a large portion of our society falling farther and farther behind, and that's the antithesis of economic development.
Scott, in our previous answers, I think most of us, or all of us, probably mentioned such things as the electrification of rural Arkansas. And I would just like to remind us all that that was done during a Democratic administration years ago. Forward thinking. And I would be there. We've got to have it.
Well, I would certainly be in favor of supporting legislation that would assist in getting computers to areas, computers, and you mentioned the hardware, to folks in areas where they can utilize them. I noticed Connect Arkansas has several great programs, and they're not only designed for the adults, but they're designed for children as well. And I know that they had a program where they were able to put computers that maybe businesses had decided to turn in and give them to families that couldn't afford computers and have them refurbished. Now, this is a great program. Yeah, we need to spend some time getting information to the general public about what is available here, because small business people can use the Connect Arkansas programs to help their businesses. Young children can have access to technology and can have access to the hardware they need. And then children in their teenage years can also have access to educational activities. So it's very, very important in our age of technology that we get not only the broadband use, but we give the opportunity for these families to have computer hardware.
Mr. Hurst, I'd like to start this one with you. There's gridlock in Washington right now. Those that are there, those who are watching, they pretty much agree. If elected, what would be some steps that you see to be successful in trying to break some of that gridlock?
Well, it appears to me that the gridlock that we discussed is created by a terrible emphasis on partisanship. You know, I would think, and I know each of the men at this table are good, honorable people, but when you agree to get involved in public service, and if you're fortunate enough to be sent to Congress, your allegiance needs to be to your constituents, to the people in the state of Arkansas, to the people in the United States of America, and what's good for them. Your allegiance should not be somewhere else, whether it's a political party or some special interest group. And I think that we need to be extremely suspect of people that try to buy their way into Washington by using special interest monies. Because when you get into Washington and you're not doing what's best for the public, for the citizens, for the people you represent, for Arkansas and for America, you're doing a disservice to your country. And when I get there, I can assure you that I'm not beholden to any special interest groups. And even though I'm a Democrat, if I thought it was in the best interest of my constituents and my country to vote for a Republican-sponsored legislation, I would certainly do it.
Here's the real problem here. We talk about gridlock as though we've elected congressmen and senators who are wackos, crazy people who just they don't get it.
Right.
They refuse to compromise. They refuse to be reasonable men. Use common sense. These guys didn't steal these positions. They didn't buy these things. Okay, they were elected by people. Okay, what we have in this country is a huge division of opinion about how the country should run, how it's currently functioning, and who's to blame and what's to do about it, okay? Basically, Republicans look at the income distribution and say, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with the gap between rich and poor. The division of income is a reflection of past responsibilities, past actions. They don't see a need to redistribute income or create social programs because that's how they see the world, okay? That's how Tea Party people see it, okay? Democrats tend to see the world very differently. They tend to see the world as having income inequality that's a threat to the continued growth of the nation, where the middle class is declining, and if this continues, there will be no economic growth in the future, no middle class. Hence, for them, income inequality is unacceptable. There should be social programs to correct it, and what you got is an inability to come together because they see the world totally different. It's a real problem. Anybody who says he's going to go up there and compromise is selling you a bill of goods. This is going to be very difficult. You know, it's like me saying, let's compromise. I'll make you an offer. I will send all of your kids to college. You pay for everything. All you got to do is divorce your wife and leave the country. What kind of compromise do we have on that kind of proposal? I mean, it doesn't make any sense, okay? We got a problem. I understand it. But when you have two halves of the nation going in different directions, seeing us going different ways, it's hard to compromise. I'm not sure what the answer is, except to convince the public that their side doesn't have the answer and that you have to move to our side, which would be the Democratic side. And to the extent that I can't do that, I can't guarantee that I can end gridlock. I'm done.
Scott, it's been mentioned already that this is the way I would put it, that over the last several decades, we've elected extremisms on both sides, ultra left and ultra right, and sort of like those cats I talked about, those sore-headed cats. They don't get along, and they don't look at each other. They don't talk, and so nothing's getting done, it seems, except gridlock. And everywhere I go in this 4th district, the 33 counties, and I know Gary's 31 counties in his district, probably finds the same thing. People are mad. The general public is really ugly about Congress and their lack of inability to get anything accomplished. When I first started running, people would ask me, said, Senator Jeffers, what are you? Well, I knew exactly what they meant. I said, I'm a Christian. They said, no, no. I said, you don't want me to be a Christian? They said, yeah, but what are, I said, well, I'm an American. No. What do you want me? I said, I'm a Democrat. And I'm proud of it. But did you hear the order I gave? That's the order I believe. And I'm proud to be all three of them. Thank you.
Topic. We'll start here. Earmarks.
Earmarks. People have a misconception of what an earmark is. Most people think that Congress passes a bill, $100 billion, and then Congress starts adding extra dollars to that bill for things. And then the bill all of a sudden grows to $150 billion. So hence what we've got here is earmarks adding to overall spending. And occasionally soft earmarks can be done that way. But 90% of what earmarks really are, or more than that, is basically where a bill's been passed, and instead of the Congress allowing the agency to control 100% of how that money's allocated out, Congress then reserves the right to hold, and usually, and historically, it's been about 0.2% of money has been held back. And a congressman will put an earmark on for maybe an overpass in Dumas, or maybe some new buildings for Monticello or something. They're basically carving out money from an existing program that they can devote to their individual district, okay? So when you go to your Congress and say, Congressman, can you help us? We got a bad road out here, a lot of accidents. Can we get an overpass? He can say, well, let me see if I can get some earmarks. Let me see if we can maybe earmark some money in the transportation bill, and over 3 or 4 years, it'll accumulate to the point that we'll have enough money to build a bridge, okay? Without the earmarks, you have no ability to go to your congressman to get any help, because what can you do, okay? They were never provisions that expanded the amount of money spent. They just carved out existing funds that could be used for local purposes. And the amounts being carved out were very, very small. It was never the cause of expansionary government policies or runaway government spending, to speak. So I'm in favor of earmarks. It allows you to come to me and say, hey, we got a problem here. And I can say, well, let me see if I can work on it. Let me see if we can allocate some money over time, maybe correct the problem. I'm done.
As a member of the Arkansas General Assembly, for the last several sessions, we, as some of the members here in the audience tonight that are members there or have been as well, have received what we call in Arkansas legislature general improvement funds, very similar to entitlements that with the federal, in similar veins. Taxes that's been paid by the entire state, but they're allocated back to a certain location. You know, I consider it a great work, because if not, things only go to a few places. They only go to, well, I better not say, but you know, we in Luann, 6 miles from Luann, don't get our fair share unless we get some of that shared back. And for that reason, yes, we have concerns as well in rural Arkansas. And basically, the 4th district is a real rural area. And we need that help. Yes, you know, we hear of the bridge to nowhere in Alaska and things like that. There's been some crazy things that people have done, but the overall general improvement funds entitlements are sent back to the people that pay the taxes, and that's what's important for the needs that's there.
Well, I think that earmarks have a place. Obviously, they can be abused, and some are very critical about earmarks. But on the other hand, I believe they, as Gary described, they can play an important part in any type of legislation. And the reason is, I think, is because oftentimes when legislation is passed and legislation is proposed, it's done to address a specific need in a specific item. And, you know, you always want your laws to be open and transparent so that the public can understand them and can see them. but they also need, the legislators that are talking about various projects that are actually needed. They need to be able to earmark funds to certain projects, and in that way, I think they can be beneficial. And from what we've discussed tonight, I think that certainly on a federal level, it could be beneficial to Southeast Arkansas in trying to promote the economy here.
Something that's facing both or all of District 1 and District 4 is the fact that there are a tremendous amount of infrastructure needs. And we talked about the side of broadband, but it also includes barge, plane, train, and automobile. If elected, will you support efforts to put more resources into highway development funds or bridge funds or wherever the needs of the region are?
Southeast Arkansas is not going to develop until it actually comes up with some kind of export base. Regions grow because they're able to sell goods or services to some area outside, some entities outside their region. If you can't get into the region and you can't get out of the region, no one's going to want to locate here, okay? It's hard to get to Southeast Arkansas. I had to go from Jonesboro to Little Rock to Pine Bluff to get here. There's no direct route in. Matter of fact, in Arkansas, there's only one interstate in and one interstate out. You come in 40 by Memphis and you go out 40, and that's it. If you want to go north and south out of Arkansas, tough. It's not going to happen. Well, where is a lot of the industrial base in the United States? The Great Lakes, the Gulf Coast? It's hard to get there. We need to have a massive expansion of the interstate system or four-lane double divided in Southeast Arkansas, because no one's going to relocate here if you can't get your stuff out. Look what they're doing in Jonesboro as an example. They're trying to get Highway 63 converted to Interstate 555 because a lot of companies don't relocate unless it's on a portion of the interstate. Well, how can you get to Southeast Arkansas? Is there any big four lanes connecting, let's say Monticello to Helena? No, the transportation. So we need huge amount of infrastructure in here, okay, in terms of slackwater harbors that could allow us to access the Mississippi River, roads, okay, that would allow us to access. So infrastructure is the key. Without it, we're not going to develop. No one's going to locate a plant that takes 5 hours to get to a major market.
Great answer, and I totally agree. You know, living in South Central Arkansas, where I do, the closest interstate I live to is in Louisiana. And that's sort of scary. Not that I diss Louisiana, but El Dorado, that's in my Senate district, is the largest town in the state of Arkansas. I think they say over 20,000 that has not a four-lane connector to an interstate. Now it does, and it's Louisiana. We are making great progress on the roads to the Little Rock area, the Highway Commission, but it's still several years away to have that four-lane connection, and it's so important. I live on the Ouachita River. The Corps of Engineers has just announced to quit dredging it, to quit the funding for it. We have a plant in Smackover that depends on oil being shipped being shipped from the North Seas up the Black and the Red Rivers up through the Ouachita River. And how do they now get it? They truck it. And because of the river is not being maintained, the locks are not being maintained. Hey, we've got a lot of infrastructure problems in South Arkansas, and we need to, in order to get ahead or to even just stay even, we got to do better than what we're doing.
Well, certainly the infrastructure has to be continuously improved. You know, we do have a problem with our highway systems, and certainly the I-69 corridor that's been on the books for some time needs to be completed. and it's there, it's ready for completion, but it needs to be completed. But you know, the infrastructure encompasses more than just highways, because you also have railways and you have river traffic. And that's why I think programs such as the Southeast Arkansas Intermodal Authority are such a great projects that need to be developed and need to be even built up more, because in that way, you know, there is a method by which people can come together from various communities and get the infrastructure that they need in order to see that goods can be properly distributed from the river by trucking and by railway, because railway is also a part of our infrastructure that needs to be improved. And we need to be looking toward high-speed railway. You know, we've kind of labored in this country for some time without a good railway system. And we know that it's possible, that we just have to go ahead and complete it. Thank you.
Mr. Jeffers, this is a question starting with you. The rigors of being elected office, there is no doubt. But the rigors of being elected to a federal office requires that you got to be in D.C. a lot. Looking at that potential future, how do you see yourself operating between here and there and staying connected in both worlds?
Scott, our president, Congressman Mike Ross, as a matter of fact, I spoke to him today on my way home from town over the phone, and I think he set a great example of what a congressman for any district should look like, especially in one the size of the 4th district, and it's even become much larger, or will be, in the near future. I think I will pattern myself very closely to what he's done, and I've visited him in the D.C. area. My wife and I have several times. I think he flies out on a Monday and comes back on Thursday night unless there's votes on the Friday. And then he doesn't come back to just Prescott, and this is the important part. He doesn't just come back to home. The next morning, he's out here in the 4th district. And I think he's done us a tremendous job of being visible and hearing our needs or concerns. And that's what your congressman must be like. It's going to be an awesome, a daunting task for whoever's elected. But someone is, we've got to have that representation to Kingston, to Montrose, to Falk, to wherever in this 4th district. Those people deserve a legislator that will be to see them, that they can communicate with, and be a part of their life as well. And that's what I intend on doing. I have grandkids. They may have to go with me sometimes, but we're going to get out into our communities. Thank you.
Well, I certainly think that and agree that communication is the key between a congressman and his district, because after all, when you're elected to Congress, you're not up there just to do what you want to do. You're up there to actually be a representative. And for you to understand the people and to understand the needs, you've got to have good communications. Now, I have to echo Gene's thoughts. I think that Mike Ross did a great job of staying in close communications with his constituents. And he did travel back and forth a great deal. And but you know, sometimes we talked about technology. In today's technological world, we should be able to stay in close communications without having to physically spend hours in the air or even on trains or buses or in cars. You need to stay on top of what's happening in the community, even if it means that you're using the technology of computers. whether you're having town hall meetings by telephone conferencing, or whether you're having it by the Skype methods on computers. But it's a key that our representatives in Congress be able to communicate with us so that they can keep up with what's needed in the communities and what might be happening, what might be going wrong, or what might be going right in order that they can advance the right programs.
Okay. Given that I've got 2 minutes here, let me divide my time in half. I want to go back to the transportation question for 60 seconds and then quickly finish with this question here. I go to Cleveland a lot to see family here, and I have to drive through Kentucky. Kentucky has a lot of roads there, not interstates. They have a lot of roads. They have Western Kentucky Parkway, the Purchase Parkway, the 3 or 4 that go north and south. All funded by the state, okay? They're originally toll roads, and then when the toll roads bills were paid off, then they became just freeways, okay? Why doesn't Arkansas do this? Why every time Arkansas has a fiscal dividend tax surplus, what do? We cut taxes. Do we use our fiscal dividend, our growth in revenues, to expand infrastructure in the state? No, we give it away in tax cuts. 67 was built when I came in Arkansas to Bald Knob. 30 years later, it's not quite done to Jonesboro. 30 years to finish a road, that's crazy. Okay, why doesn't the state of Arkansas float a $3 billion, $5 billion, $10 billion highway bill and build the roads they need and pay them off over the life of the road? That's efficient public finance, but we don't do it. The state could do better with their own funds. We're always buying into the tax cuts are necessary to generate growth. All it does is rob us our own financial ability to take care of ourselves and provide infrastructure for ourselves. And I'll watch the cards here to see how much time I have left. Congressmen basically need to be where they need to be. If you need to be in Congress in Washington for 4 months in a row to work on legislation, that's fine. But at times you may need to come back to explain to the public what it is needs to be done. You need to come back as necessary and hold town hall meetings to explain this is what we're doing and why we're doing it, okay? Electronic media is everywhere. You can be in touch without having to physically be here, but there are times when you really do need to be here. And it's got to be a flexible thing. In the district, when I need to explain to my public what we're doing and why it's important, and in D.C. when it's important to be with Congress, to get legislation passed, to politic whatever it takes to get the right legislation passed.
Mr. Hurst, this question will start with you. And it's a topic question, immigration.
Well, I think immigration is a complex issue in today's times, and you know, one thing we have to recall and always remember is that our country was created by immigration and by immigrants, and but today, in today's problems, we know that there are difficulties with immigration. Sometimes it's referred to as illegal immigration. And certainly what is illegal cannot be condoned. And so it's very important that we secure our borders, but we need to look at it in a very practical and humane way. We need to stop the influx of illegal immigrants, because that sends a message out that they don't have to go the legal route to enter the country. Immigrants, whether they be from Europe, Canada, Mexico, whatever nation they want to come in, there is a path, and they must use that legal method. But we also have another problem in the United States, and that is that some of our people involved in industry and business want to utilize immigrants that have not gotten here legally because they think they can exploit them for cheap wages. And this is not right. They are in complexity with the illegal problem. And so not only do we have to secure our borders to prevent that illegal activity, but we have to get firm with businesses that promote trying to make a few dollars more or a larger profit by utilizing a cheap labor because they may be afraid to voice their objections because they're not in the country legally. So I think it's a twofold situation.
Nations grow because they have economic resources. Today, our birth rates are at near depression levels. We are close to having zero population growth rate in terms of just indigenous birth rates. If we don't have a growing population, the economy doesn't grow. My real name, actually I found out 2 years ago, really isn't Latanich at all. It's Latanich with 3 more letters added to it, that in the Cyrillic alphabet, that he chopped off in Ellis Island, okay? And that's how we became Latanich without the other letters. My wife's family is immigrants 2 generations ago from Mexico, okay? With today's philosophy in place 50 years ago, neither of us would be here, okay? We are from immigrant stock, and yet she was director of religious education, I'm a college professor, okay? The strength of America is the people who come here, okay? And yet we've got a xenophobic philosophy today that the foreigners are bad. And we've had this over and over and over again. The Chinese built the railroads, and then we wouldn't let them buy homes. We discriminated against the Germans after World War II. We discriminated against the Irish when they came here. How many times do we have to learn our lessons? These are people who are coming here just like we did generations ago to get a better life, okay? They will enrich our country. These people work. They buy products. They pay Social Security taxes, income taxes, sales taxes, okay? And they produce products for us. We need a guest worker program, one where we can allow people to come in as we need and that they can be protected from unscrupulous businesses who would abuse them knowing that they don't have rights. So we do need, and the legal route is broken. It takes 50 or 60, if you're going to go the legal route and want to bring your kids in, if you come here illegally and want to bring your kids in, it could take sometimes 50 years to get your kids in here, okay? The legal system is so broken, it doesn't work. The backlog is decades, generations. We need to fix it. And saying we need to go the legal route doesn't work.
Thank you, gentlemen. I agree with what's been said. Immigration, we're all here because of immigration. And the problem is when we put the word illegal in front of it, makes it the difficult part. You know, I've been a couple times to Ellis Island in New York, and to stand there on the steps of where my folks come across from Europe years and years ago, and to think about the difficulties that must have existed for them during that time would just shake your heart. We have got to control the illegal part of it. Is the concern that I have. We do need those workers to come across for many, many things. Here in southeast Arkansas, we use them for various things. And they're useful in what they do in our economy here. They do pay those taxes. They do buy groceries. They do go to the doctors and pay for them. You know, one of the concerns that I have, though, is about the drug trafficking. I think it has a major effect on that area of our lives, and we as a nation have got to defend the borders in some way or another for drug trafficking through immigration, illegal immigrants as well.
We started with introductions with Mr. Latanich. We're going to start on the other end of the table with summaries or conclusions. We've kind of already ran its course, so Mr. Hurst, if you would start us.
Sure, I'd be glad to. First of all, thank you, Scott, for moderating the panel. I think you've done a great job. And I also want to thank the Cornerstone Coalition for giving us this opportunity. You know, I've been campaigning now for several months, and it's really very enlightening to be able to come and talk to individuals and to give our views and then to have some input. And it's really a wonderful thing, and sometimes I regret that all the candidates don't want to participate as actively because they're missing out on part of the process. And And I can tell you that I think that regardless of who wins the Democratic primary on May 22nd, the process has made me a better man, and it's made me a better citizen, and I'm just happy that I could do it. Now, I want to tell you that I do think that I could be your best congressman. I would not have entered this race if I didn't feel very strongly about that. I believe that I have life experiences that allows me to understand people's problems, that allows me to understand the difficulties that we have in life, and it also helps me to be compassionate enough to try to craft solutions that can be done from a federal level. You know, there are a lot of things that we can do to help our communities. We've talked about education, infrastructure, the creation of jobs, and all of that is important. You know, we're in an economic problem right now that can only be solved by good leadership. So what I'm asking you to do is invest in your leadership. And I'm Q. Byram Hurst. I'm running for Congress in the 4th District. I'm asking for your vote. Thank you very much.
On the bottom of my little card, it says better economics for a better tomorrow. Okay? And as an economist, I truly believe that economics, if used correctly, wisely, has the power to transform our nation into an economic powerhouse with a huge, prosperous middle class. Okay? I think we've all heard the expression, rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic. And right now, we are on the Titanic. Okay, we've got a lot of issues out there. We talk about health care and this and that. The one issue that we don't talk about a lot, that's really the iceberg that's going to sink us, is income inequality. Okay? I know it's not popular to talk about it, but let's be honest here with each other. When I was a boy, the biggest company in the United States was General Motors, and they paid wages that in today's dollars were $60,000. Today's biggest employer is Walmart, paying in today's wages $17,000. All those auto workers had health care and retirement. The Walmart workers have none. Okay? Between 1979 and the day before the recession, 75% of all the income earned in the United States went to the top 10%. The bottom 90 had to share 24-point-something%. There's no way our nation continues to advance economically and prosperously if all the money gets shunted to one side. There won't be a big enough middle class to buy the products needed to maintain growth and jobs. If we don't control income inequality, we are going to grow slower and slower and have more unemployment, more poverty, and more people living in conditions like we see in Southeast Arkansas. It's an issue that has to be addressed. I'm not sure what the answer is, but inequality will be the rock that sinks this economy if we don't get our act together. That's why I'm running for the 1st District Congress in Arkansas.
Scott, let me first of all thank you and the coalition, Cornerstone Coalition, for allowing us to be here tonight and this afternoon. It's been a wonderful experience for myself, as well as I'm sure the other gentlemen and even the previous speakers that were here this evening. It was good to sit in and hear them as well. You know, growing up in Southeast Arkansas, and by the way, it was 100 miles south of Pine Bluff. Southeast Arkansas goes a long ways. I used to hear folks on TV saying, now we're going to get a report from Southeast Arkansas, and they'd go to Pine Bluff. I wondered about us in Crossett and Monticello and Star City and the other areas from Lake Village on as well. And it's good to have been raised in Southeast Arkansas. I was raised in a family of 7 brothers and sisters, my mom and dad. My granddad lived with us on a small farm out by the Ouachita River. And probably folks at that time would have probably called the Jeffers family poor. But you know, there was a lot of other folks that same shape and condition. But I had a great mom and dad and a great family, and they taught us several valuable experiences. One of them was how to do a mule team even, and for the garden or the field. But you know, they taught us two things that really stick out, and that's to get an education, guys, and to get Christianity. And those two things have really enabled me to do the things in life that's been beneficial. I want to give some of that back. I've had those life experiences. That's important. And 4th District needs to elect someone that's had those kind of experiences, I think. Thank you.
Gentlemen in our panel, we really appreciate and thank you for your time. We thank you for the opportunity to share your insights and your knowledge. To those who joined us today, we greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule. And for those who are joining us online, we appreciate your time in following and sharing with us on this tonight. If you weren't able to watch tonight, or encourage your friends, this forum tonight will be archived at connect-arkansas.org. Please be safe and drive safely. Have a good night.